Sound. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about oracles and the different paths that they take us down.
Oracles and the different paths they take us down.
In a lot of different ways.
Okay.
And we're going to look at some historical oracles from the past and prophecies and these sort of things. And we're also going to be looking at how they are incorporated into our contemporary vision of the world.
Wow.
So here we have a Waterhouse painting. Are you familiar with Waterhouse?
He's the artist. I recognize a certain style.
He did that woman who was underneath the water with red hair. I can't remember.
I recognize the style kind of a look.
He's I think Art Nouveau, like 1890s or so.
Was that Ophelia?
Yes.
Drowning?
Yeah,
okay.
Ophelia, yeah.
Okay, okay. One of my students did a project on that. Okay.
So here we have a Waterhouse painting. This is called Consulting the Oracle. And we're just to give us an idea of how we think about oracles in the past as being some sort of object or some sort of mysterious vision or text that comes from a source outside of people's normal realities.
Wow.
So oracle, actually, if we look at the word oracle, we can start seeing other words that are related to oracle, one being orator. An orator is somebody who speaks or narrates. So an oracle comes from the same root of this word, ora, meaning like oral speaking tradition.
Okay.
It was often used as an adjective as well. So an oracle is a person or agency considered to provide wise and insightful counsel of prophetic predictions or precognition of the future, inspired by the gods. As such, it is a form of divination. Oracles took place during public appearances of the god in statue form that would be carried on the priest's shoulders. So here we can see an old oracle from ancient Egypt. And they would do this when they would have public appearances of the god statue form that would be carried on these people's shoulders, and people would come out and see this. There's all different types of oracles, but they kind of have similar looks to them from like an aesthetic perspective. If we're looking at them, these are Chinese writing, which is done on a scapula of an ox. But you can see it almost kind of feels like runes as well when we're looking at these things. So there's kind of a symbolic approach often to oracles. There's like almost like a sigil. When we're talking about sigil magic, there's kind of a magical look that we associate with these sort of things.
Yes.
Simplified shapes. Sometimes they represent things, sometimes they represent other things. Here we can see the entire runic alphabet. I guess, do we call it an alphabet?
Is that what it is?
I don't know if we call it an alphabet, but we see a bunch of different runes, and you could throw runes to like figure out different stuff with them. I actually have an app on my phone which allows me to generate different runes. So it's simplified. Now we start getting into the meat of what I'm talking about today. Have you ever heard of this book, The Morning of the Magicians?
No, Le Matin des Magiciens.
So this is a book that was written in the 1960s by Louis Pauwels and Jacques Bergier. And they were two French guys.
Evidently.
And it had a lot of stuff about UFOs in it. But one of the big things that it had in it was Hitler's occultic practices.
Okay.
So this was one of the first books that started writing about Hitler and started writing about the occult at the same time.
Yes.
And even when this book came out, people were criticizing it for being just sensationalist for the sake of just selling books. And an entire industry, as we know now, kind of comes out of this type of a book, you know, where on the History Channel or whatever you see a documentary like Secrets of Hitler's satanic powers or whatever.
The pyramids.
But there's also some real stuff. I didn't include it in this, but the Nazis actually created their own runic alphabet that they would use, like the SS thing.
Yeah.
Those are actually taken from their own runes. So there is an element. It's not totally untrue to say that politicians aren't incorporating some of these symbols into their buildings, into their design of their dress, into their architectural planning, and this sort of stuff. There are references to this. We don't have to get into like the Da Vinci Code, but there is some sort of mystical, esoteric quality to political organizations and how they present themselves. And since we can't see what these things mean, they seem like they're kind of something beyond our capability of understanding. So we talked about George Washington or people in Skull and Bones. Have you heard of Skull and Bones? So a lot of
George Bush was that.
Yeah.
H.W. Bush. Okay.
So, and they supposedly have Geronimo's skull as well.
Really? That's not good.
So we can see there is some connection between what this guy's writing about, Nazis, and runic things. It's not like an outlandish thing.
Yeah.
Even though he's talking about UFOs and other stuff, it's not totally outlandish to think.
I understand.
Here we can look at the, you know, the contemporary version of this is where we see the ancient aliens phenomenon. And this book also posited, basically, there's a guy, Eric Daniken. Have you heard of Eric Daniken? Yeah. He's the guy that he wrote Chariot of the Gods.
Yes. Okay, I recognize that.
Which is a book early, I think it probably was late 1960s, maybe, or mid-60s. But it basically was the first, supposedly the first book to talk about ancient aliens. But this book also posited the same exact premise, which was, you know, pyramids are hard to build, aliens did it. And this becomes kind of a joke. This guy, I can't remember his name, but he's on the show often, and people kind of make fun of him and make memes about him, where it's like everything, the explanation to everything is aliens. But then again, when we look at this weird old artwork, being an art person, what is actually going on with this head and this eye? And, you know, a lot of times these types of people are associated with what's called pseudo-archaeology. So, you know, or no, not pseudo, crypto-archaeology. So like hidden archaeology, but like cryptozoology would be the study of werewolves and Bigfoot and this sort of stuff. So crypto-archaeology is like this kind of fantastic realism, which is what they called this, realisme fantastique. It's kind of in that same genre. Ancient Aliens is kind of in that same genre.
Oh boy.
Now we have the Nazca lines here, and this is supposedly an astronaut that you can see right here.
Yes.
And people say that this is an astronaut presence, and we don't know what this thing is. What was it used for? Some people say it was a calendar. It was just a calendar, like the moon would go down behind its head at a certain time of the year, or whatever, or it would mark a solstice or something. Other people say, here's like a bunch of satellites, or these are, you know, like radio telescopes. And it was like a communication device to aliens or the gods above. We don't know what it is, so there's like a place where you can actually try to figure out. It's inviting you to kind of bring your own fantasy into it already, because we don't know the answer. So now we get into the other part of it, which is our quotes. Here we have Daniel and talking about different prophecies and the Antichrist and how the Antichrist comes to earth. So thinking about oracles, communication, I don't know what Daniel was up to, particularly, you probably do.
Yes.
But he wrote, "The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it into pieces. So we could think about in terms of like a nuclear missile or something. Breaking the earth into small pieces could be something the Antichrist would do. I could hear his boastful speech, again referring to the Antichrist. And we could associate somebody like a character, kind of like Donald Trump, who is, very boastful in his speech,
yes,
as being somebody who would fit this certain type of a characteristic.
yes.
He had a mouth like that of a lion, and this is from Revelations, speaking about the Antichrist. And with Donald Trump, again, we have a person who is always like attacking, no matter what the instance is. It's Alec Baldwin, but he doesn't even spell his name right. But he's choosing to lash out at these people and attack people aggressively. And I saw a beast come out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, which stood upon 7 hills. And coincidentally, we can see that Trump has 7 different Trump Hotel locations. If we look on top of these, this is from Benjamin Corey's website, by the way. If we look at top of these, we can start to see they also have horns on top of them. In John's vision, he said that the 7 heads had horns on them. Some had just 1, some had 2. So we can see that these 7 hills that are controlled by Donald Trump all have these horns on them as well. Of course, we also know that the Kushner family bought 666 Fifth Avenue, which is also considered to be the mark of the beast. The whole full world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. Revelations. And of course, we can see people that are willing to follow this character, this person, and do so somewhat blindly. After an alliance is made with him, he will practice deception, and he will go up and gain power with a small force of people. And so here we can see Donald Trump is making these sorts of alliances. Here's Sergei Kislyak, and they're having kind of an unconventional alliance, but it's one which only involves an extremely small group of elite people. He will cause deceit to prosper, and he will consider himself superior. He will use every kind of evil deception to fool those on their way to destruction, because they refuse to love and accept the truth that would save them. And that's Daniel's 8:25 and Thessalonians 2:10. And this would be similar to the idea of fake news. Now, when we're starting to look at all these different things, we can start thinking about secret societies and these sort of things. This is actually at the place called Bohemian Grove, where they burn this fake effigy of a child, and world leaders all around the world come there and do this sort of a ritual. Weird. Past presidents have been there. Alex Jones is the first person that ever infiltrated Bohemian Grove and got this footage, actually, and took this footage. So now, what is Alex Jones as a character? He might also begin engaging in the same sort of thing as the Ancient Aliens and as the French magician's book, in that it's this same fantastic realism as well. It's based on reality, but it's also based on this sort of fantastic creation all around it. The same sort of fantastic creation I just did with Donald Trump, because it kind of fits my own biases. Of course, now we see a breakdown of these two different things, and the fantastic realist agencies are actually within the government themselves doing messaging for them. So the official channels are being used by these sort of fantastic realistic practitioners, and all InfoWars, of course, gets White House press credentials.
Who's this guy again? I recognize him.
Jerome Corsi.
Okay, I've seen him. Yeah, okay.
And here's the final slide, 30 seconds left. Here is a book by Vladislav Surkov, who's writing under the name Nathan Dubovitsky, and he is Putin's propaganda buddy, and he wrote this book of short stories about a new capitalist economy following the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the manipulation of truth into a public relations enterprise. And so now we are in a situation where the manipulation of truth itself is something that is involved with public relations and the controlling of a narrative for certain politicians' benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So in the presentation you can see, is what I said, you might have been seduced by this, thinking maybe that is a prophecy and maybe that is Donald Trump. But what I'm saying is that a dangerous road to go down, because it's so seductive to think, oh, Donald Trump is the Antichrist. That's how we want to think. Humans kind of naturally want to think something has a clear answer to it, when in general the answers are far more boring and banal. Rich guy wants to be rich.
Banal.
But
that's a pretty fancy word.
The seven towers with their horns,
yes,
that makes us think maybe he is the Antichrist.
So the question you said, is it a dangerous path to go down
to believe oracles?
To kind of be susceptible.
Well, we know it's dangerous if Alex Jones is doing it, right?
Yes.
And some guy goes and shoots up a pizza joint.
Yes. Right. But, yeah. Okay.
So
and the question though,
I use this as an example because then you have to wrestle with your own biases.
Ah, okay. You wanted me to wrestle with my own biases. Yes. Okay.
We want to believe Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Right? So we go out and we look for information to confirm that belief.
Aha. Okay.
Is that how these things work?
Is there going to be, and then are we supposed to discuss this now?
Okay, we can have 5 minutes of discussion.
Is this what we're supposed to do?
Yes. 5 minutes of discussion.
Well, this took a path that I wasn't expecting.
Right.
The oracle issue, the revelations from somewhere.
Do you think Revelations is telling the future? That's the main question. Is it telling the future?
You're asking me that? Or do I?
Yeah.
You mean the book of Revelation?
Or whatever, Daniel. John had a vision, right? Do you know this vision about seeing the horns on top of the... You do?
Well, I don't know.
That particular one.
Yeah, right. But I know the book of Revelation, and I know Daniel, and I know that, so...
So when you craft a text, like... I can never remember the name of it. The French text.
Oh, the morning of morning of the magicians.
Yeah.
We should read that someday. I'm sure it's available.
It's in English.
Right, and you're raising questions about oracle, the sort of mystical message.
Here, a person wrote this. 2 people wrote it:
They're
Louis
human.
Bauel and Jacques Bergier.
We'll just call them Louis and Jacques.
Louis and Jacques.
Yeah.
Louis and Jacques wrote this.
Yes.
How was that different than Daniel?
Oh, Daniel. Okay.
Is it the age of how old it is, or?
Let me make a comment, okay? And this relates to your theme, is definitely. And here's a little thought I had about this text, and it relates to what you're doing. One thing I find interesting about this, and I would find it even more evocative if this little group, this group of short 1-verse texts, they're just like your 924 Kings, were printed as a separate attractive document, just letting them, here comes Daniel, here comes Daniel, here comes Revelation, there was a Malachi or a Zechariah here someplace, and we wouldn't even necessarily, I did read who compiled them, but Benjamin Corey could gather these, and then he printed them. And if he would print them with let's say a little booklet, and make the print a little bigger, and a nice cover maybe of some kind, and then we would read it as not just as something we copied from the internet, which is kind of not that exciting to look at, but more attractively, it would have power for the reader. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And so, a contemporary liberal like myself, who certainly has, well, some feelings about Donald Trump, would find this very evocative of the Trump reality, no doubt of at all. And so,
is that
yeah.
ancient aliens thinking? Why do we let ourselves fall into that?
Well, rather than saying falling, I'm going to suggest that it would be by putting this together in an attractive document, but not, don't even say it's Trump.
Yeah.
Make it more aesthetically powerful. I don't think it's necessarily falling. I think it's evocative, because one of the
but we kind of like it. Didn't you kind of like when you saw the antennas on top of the buildings?
Well, I knew what was going on, and well, okay, since we're talking about personal things,
we're talking about oracle. I wanted it to be kind of about Revelations as an oracle, right?
You mean the Book of Revelation in the Bible? Is it? Yeah. Okay, that's
Isn't it a vision of the future? How did he get those visions?
Well, let's take, since that is related to the actual book, it raises this question of how do people read the Book of Revelations? How do they read it?
Well, we just read it.
Well, no. What we read is Corey's selection of highly evocative biblical texts that really struck him.
Right.
And it strikes us too. And I'm glad that he probably thinks,
But I mean, people obviously do this with the Bible a lot, though, right?
Yes.
We could find evidence against whatever.
Yeah.
Why you should sell your daughter into prostitution,
or buy stocks.
Or buy stocks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to say though that this is an act of creativity, and yes, it evokes. But from a personal point of view, I would say I have suggested, even though I'm not the kind of person that goes around and saying the Antichrist is here, I certainly have a sense that there is something uniquely evil going on in the world today. I've actually said words like that. I'm enough of a modern, scientific, secular person and ironic. I know that's not how things are. And yet, how do we account how human beings today are trying to account for what they sense as evil in Donald Trump? Not just normal, stupid politician who's not very good at what he does. And I've said, different groups have said, I think the two most evil people in the world today, I think, are Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And that's kind of shocking to say it. And you could be Michael Beschloss, who that presidential historian that appears on MSNBC all the time, and he has thoughts about why Trump is a bad president, and we all agree, but we're trying to account for something. It's bad enough just to describe it in terms of secularity, and how did this happen that these two big countries, Putin is head of a large country. It's not that big like China, but his ability to taint and poison and influence in the worst sense of the word is just really kind of amazing. So how do we account for what we sense is something kind of evil? And in this case, he is providing us. I think if he were saying this proves that Donald Trump is the Antichrist, I'm making a case, because
It's obviously making a case that
Well,
Donald
I
Trump
think
is the Antichrist.
it isn't really making a case. It's just a scattered group.
No,
and
there's text with it.
Well,
there's more.
Okay,
I
well,
copied and pasted the
when I'm reading, and I'm not saying this proves that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. It just, these are selected biblical phrases, verses that really are evocative of something evil, something bad that is happening in our world, and we're trying to account for it. Because yes.
But what is the?
Yes.
You get the point with Alex Jones and Bohemian Grove.
Is Bohemian Grove a real thing?
It is.
Where does that happen?
In California.
Oh, it's okay. And then every year they have some kind, like Burning Man, some kind of a ritual.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, it's an event.
They burn care. I don't know why they call it care, but it's a sacrifice of a small child. It's not a real child.
Oh, okay.
Supposedly. Some people think it is.
Oh, okay, but it is a real event, and I could go to it if
no, you couldn't go.
Why not?
Because you have to be part of the secret society.
Oh, okay, secret societies. Okay, yes. All right.
But presidents have gone there in the past. A lot of presidents have gone there.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's actually true.
Okay.
But it could be like a fraternity kind of.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Like the George Bush kind of Skull and Bones.
Well, we don't know what Skull and Bones is, though, too, do we?
No. Well,
Nazis, when they were messing around with runes, that's not cool.
Right.
So maybe they're we have no idea. That's what I'm saying. So we immediately have to go to fantastic realism, don't we? In order to kind of make sense of the world.
Well, I'm thinking we are one of because we sense. I'm going to use this as my thing, because we sense. I mean, people who are politically liberal and leftists and others, we sense something unusually evil,
right?
And we have to think about it, and we know about history, we know about psychology, yes. We know about political move. We know that bad things like Hitler and Stalin happened in the past are just real and terrible. So it's not unprecedented that bad things, really bad leaders. What we're trying to account for, and we're hoping it'll be over soon, when maybe, but is what is it even that inspires this man to be president? It's not that clear. If he is,
money,
because he's not. But... Well, is it something as banal as money, or is he part of some kind of thing with Putin and Steve Bannon and various intellectuals and fascist kind of leaner? Is he? Just to describe him as a greedy man that wants money is not adequate. It really isn't. Why does he do such? Why is he so consistently?
Well, they say I mean, I've heard that the levels of sociopaths. Have you heard this? Like the levels of sociopaths in the public is X, and CEOs have like 3 times more.
Okay.
Yes,
I know. Yes,
sociopaths, if it's Charles Manson or Donald Trump or
the
Barack Obama,
or the chairman.
It could be Barack Obama too. He was super charismatic, and
Yeah. Yes.
But I don't think Barack Obama's a sociopath. But he probably has certain tendencies that other people don't, and Donald Trump probably has certain genetic actual tendencies that predispose him to, narcissistic rage and these sort of things.
Did I ever share my big 4 quotes on Trump that I use? Okay, I'll say it really quick. I've shared these in other groups, but ever since his campaign started in June of 2015, I'm sure Bonnie and I have thought about and discussed him every single day. For 5 years, we feel the weight of this personality, and sometimes
he's the Antichrist.
Well, I've used that term as that within Christianity, within the Christian tradition, there is something called an Antichrist. That is true. And it's come up in my mind as, is this something evil that's beyond anything? Okay. Anyhow, so I'll say it fast. I noticed that people were trying to come up with words to describe this person. And they, for example, somebody on my email said, or Facebook, he's a bozo, meaning a clown, buffoon, that he's kind of a foolish clown. And then eventually we heard narcissist, then we heard psychopath, then we heard sociopath. Rather than those words just being thrown out because we hate you, we're going to come, you piece of shit, that doesn't say anything, it just shows. But people were trying to be kind of accurate about what, find a word or phrase that actually seemed accurate rather than just, I hate this guy, I hate his guts. So as time passed, there were certain phrases that I've gravitated toward, and I've shared this with various people, and I'll say it quickly. Even the Quakers, I did it with them. During the campaign, a evangelical magazine that's kind of famous among Christian evangelists which would normally be conservative, was saying, discouraging people from vote for Trump. They never endorsed Hillary, that was too much. But the phrase they used was, this was the first one, he is an idolater, what Scripture would call a fool. Now, Frank, your friend, would like that, because the Proverbs are full of a fool.
Oh, talking about the Proverbs, right?
Right. Remember here, the Bible uses the word, the fool digs and falls into his own pit. This kind of,
Oh, really? That's a good one.
It's very nice. But the word, anyhow, that was my first one. He is an idolater, meaning he is like obsessed with power and greed, buildings, idolatry, and money. Oh my God. Okay. And that was a good phrase, I thought. The second one came from a former Republican senator from New Hampshire. And this was after he became president. He said, we must be rid of this vile president who has come to personify evil. He knows you don't go around saying he's evil. People are not evil. They do bad things and things like that. But just to say he's evil, personify, which is much more said, everything he does personifies evil. Almost everything,
Well, from our perspective.
Well, yeah, yes. Okay. Then the third one was, do you remember Bill Moyers, who had this TV show? Okay,
yeah.
Right. And a Democrat, and he's kind of a smart person and everything. And they were talking with him one day on his show or something about trying to get into Trump's mind. Like, people say, nobody understands how he thinks. And says, well, what does it mean to get into his soul? What is a soul? And Moyer said in that interview, he doesn't have a soul. Instead, he is an open sore. I thought that was very interesting because he was showing that this person is sort of wounded and vulnerable. And it was an attempt to put, okay. Then my fourth one came from Mike Mulvaney. Remember
Mick Mulvaney?
Mick Mulvaney, who became his chief of staff. Well,
he's gone now, isn't he?
Yes, he was removed, and this Mark Meadows have taken over.
Eesh.
During the actual campaign, Mick Mulvaney did not support George Trump, or whatever his name
Donald
is. Trump. I think he was like a Jeb Bush supporter, but he was known as a conservative.
Yeah.
I think he was a legislator. And they asked him during the campaign, and he said, Donald Trump is a terrible human being. And I thought that was so, even if there are people you don't like, you don't usually say that. You say, he's an asshole, he's a jerk, he's a fucking ass, or whatever. A piece of shit, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
He's a mean person. But to say he's a terrible human being, I think he kind of meant it.
And people have, terrible human being is kind of a saying. When you say that's a terrible person. But let's get back to the topic at hand here.
Right.
Wait,
and I'm just saying that those
are
attempts to describe somebody who's unusually evil.
Yes, but what you did was you went to real humans.
Yes, I
in
did.
all your examples.
Yes, I would, wouldn't I?
So you didn't go to he is a seven-headed beast.
No, I did not.
In the Antichrist. And you're not going to go on the corner and yell Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Probably.
No,
There's a certain
wouldn't be me.
in like, well, it's not liberals really.
Right? No, exactly.
You know, it doesn't tend to be. I don't think the left has this kind of absolutism that the fundamentalist Christians. You know, Corey, this guy Benjamin Corey, he was raised in a fundamentalist Christian home. Did you read his little blurb?
Yeah,
but he was like raised in a fundamentalist Christian home and had all these problems with his family because he wasn't a fundamentalist Christian. But then he started reading the Bible from this more. So it's still kind of a very like esoteric and mystical approach to the world, but he had to get to that place by being a conservative Christian.
At one time he was.
I didn't come up with those quotes.
Right.
You didn't come up with those.
No,
he kind of came up with those quotes.
Yeah.
That's more natural for his world that he came from. In this Alex Jones world of they're all meeting at Bohemian Grove and they're gonna figure out policy and it's all about this global agenda, you know, and like this global agenda in FEMA camps and they're gonna put us all in camps and
yes
there's a secret happening, they're gonna do it, they're setting up a camp, you know, in southern Texas right now. I saw 20,000 tents coming into the area, you know, like there's this conspiratorial bend immediately to things. Facebook has to do with this, obviously. Disinformation campaigns.
Yes.
I saw an advertisement, I think it was on MSNBC or something, but I saw an advertisement where it was a course. It was like an actual course on digital literacy.
Yeah, I understand.
That was like combating misinformation and how to look at the internet.
Sure, yes.
Because the internet is obviously fertile ground.
Yes.
And that's why I ended with Vladislav Surkov or Nathan Dubitsky. Go back to that. It's just his book, but this is the end of the circle, I think, kind of, where you actually have a writer, a postmodern artist.
Yeah, a sophisticated person.
Surkov comes from, you know, he's known for having a picture of Tupac Shakur on his desk, and he says this is the only good thing America ever made. We don't even know what that means. It's impossible to figure out what the hell does that mean when he says that. Is that an insult? Is that a good thing? Why Tupac? Is it meant to be postmodern and absurd and indecipherable? That's the entire point. And here we have the person like literally writing a book and then saying, I'm writing a book about manipulation of truth into public relations and enterprise. I'm going to say I'm doing this. There's no secret anymore. There's no Bohemian Grove. The people in the robes, we don't know who they are. Was George Bush there? We don't know. They're just saying it outright now. They're doing it. And it's weaponized. It's like weaponized conspiracies. That's the whole talk about Facebook and these sort of things as well. How do you weaponize a conspiracy theory for your benefit? So you can cling on to power. And I'm sure they're doing it all over the world.
Well, that's rather disturbing, isn't it?
But it comes from that urge to kind of like these things. See what I'm saying? Is this fantastic realism? He had a mouth like that of a lion.
You know, when I saw that out, the first thing I saw was there's something about Donald Trump's head and face. No, I mean people.
He looks like the lion from the Wizard of Oz, kind of.
Yes, but he also looks like Mussolini.
Yeah, well, the mannerisms.
And I'm not the first. You know, other people have said this because they're trying to find ways to account for this what seems like a unique figure in American presidential life. That's for sure.
But is it helpful to go towards that solution? Does that make us the same as Alex Jones, kind of? I'm saying that urge. I'm saying the urge to want that stuff is a kind of a universal thing. That's what I'm saying. So if we look at it, obviously I don't agree with Alex Jones, but if we look at it from the perspective of an urge people have to try and make sense of the world,
yes,
it feels better to be like Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Here's why. wouldn't that simplify things? Instead of dealing with Nathan Dubovitsky, who's not even using his real name.
Yeah.
And nobody knows he's never said he wrote it. But everyone knows he wrote it. Like, it's his wife's maiden name that he uses as his pen name.
Okay.
And so it's like, we don't even know he wrote it.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment. And that is, I think because Hitler was defeated, we have a pretty easy time being opposed to fascism and Nazism. And so the liberal, the globalist, universalist, peace and United Nations kind of view has dominated, and we're not used to the fact of having genuine fascist intellectuals.
Right. And a lot of them.
Like Putin's
who's that
friends.
Guy? Dugin.
Yes, Dugin.
Alexander Dugin.
I was trying to think of his name, and I thought maybe he was.
It's the same realm. Right. Well, Dugin's more classical nationalist. Surkov is the post. Surkov is more of the postmodern. There's no need to craft a narrative. We don't even need one narrative. We can have 4 narratives, and they can all conflict with each other.
Right.
It's the real doublethink, kind of creepy postmodern stuff that comes from the art world. Okay. He says he went to art school.
Yes, but I'm saying that we're, especially in America, we think conservatives are rubes, Huckabee. They're not very smart.
Huckabee is. He's just actually
they're not
stupid.
very smart.
Like, he's an actual.
They're not intellect. The liberals are all super intellectual. They have their MFAs, their doctorates, and so we're not used to highly sophisticated fascistic intellectuals or artists, because if the artists have all become leftists for the most part, the poets are all leftists,
is it easier to, so here's the question then.
Yes.
So when you go, I had to buy gas in Wyoming, in Sundance, Wyoming.
Okay.
And I went into the gas station, and there was a man with a prosthetic leg.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he was walking around buying his stuff. And I bought my gas and chips and stuff. And the woman behind the desk was like, man, his prosthetic doesn't fit him right. And she was totally sure. She's like, he needs to get that checked. And it's like,
this is a real live human being that had the
This was the woman selling the cashier.
Yeah, okay.
She was like Lisa from 90 Day Fiancé.
Yeah, okay.
Basically, except skinny.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of like she had a very, like, I don't know if this is like a left and right sort of thing, but maybe I would look at that and be like, man, he's really having trouble walking with that. That must be difficult for him to negotiate the world with that prosthetic leg. Whereas she wanted a black and white answer, and all of a sudden she knows about prosthetic leg fitting.
Yeah, she's just too confident from our point of view.
But if we're selling the idea, and I showed somebody like that these quotes, we might be able to win. And this is kind of this creepy Russian approach to the world that I saw bubble up every once in a while. Not just Russian, it's all over the world. But certainly happening there now often with having Putin in power for so long. That there's no... The world is run by people smarter than you. Why bother? People are stupid. They need to be ruled over. And I think liberals want to be like logical and be like, well, do you really know how to fit a prosthetic leg? I think, he probably talked to his doctor, and like perhaps his doctor would have more expertise, or you know what I mean? Whereas there seems to be a natural tendency to just immediately think like, this is like this, this is like this.
Yeah. And if you don't have a sense of self-criticism, and you're not even used to being challenged, whatever comes to your mind seems true.
But how does the left even use? Can you think of an example? Who is the leftist Alex Jones? talking about runes and aliens and how Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Does it even exist? Could it possibly exist? Could he get an audience? Could somebody saying that actually get an audience of people to be like, oh, I tune into Jeremiah every week and he talks about his alien abduction and how Donald Trump's the Antichrist?
I would suggest there is another group of players in America that rescue us. Here they go again.
Oh, God. Who?
Black people. They save us. Martin Luther King and what those preachers today, including this Al Sharpton, they save us once again. They're religious in a very naive sort of way. I mean, they were talking about God and Jesus and
well, not naive.
It was not very. It wasn't a complex theology or anything, and they were bewailing racism.
But, I mean,
and they were supporting George Floyd, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
And they were calling for peace and justice. And
in the funeral today.
At the funeral and all the funerals. And
but they weren't. What? That's
yes,
that's a service. That's different than.
Right, but they save us.
But they're not. But Al Sharpton's not saying Donald Trump's the Antichrist.
No, but he offers an alternative that is religious and spiritual and moral, and I don't even trust him that much, but because I don't, he was a sleazebag once when he was fat. But no, he was not that noble a person.
Really?
No, but
I think he was like with Martin Luther King when he got shot.
Not Al Sharpton.
I think he was.
No way. He's no. Anyhow, he was too young. He was a bit.
No, he's old.
I checked today. He's 68 or something.
That's old.
Anyhow, my point is that
when was Martin Luther King shot? 68.
68. So let me make this point: that as we think about these, what we might call religious, the role of religion and passion and songs and music, that there's something about, for Americans, there's something about the Black Civil Rights Movement, the history of the whole thing, that saves us, I think, from being too susceptible to a kind of crazy spirituality.
I don't get how that saves us.
Well, Joe Biden was there today, and he was he was trying to be religious too. He quoted Ecclesiastes.
Maybe they are religious.
Well, yeah, I think they are. Yeah, no, there's a place for religion in this world, and I think when it comes to, again, I am not against this document. I am against making a case.
I copy and pasted those. The original blog post has a little narrative with it, but it's him.
So you created that document in some way.
I technically made
I think it'd be nice to make it even prettier, as you can see, with nice print and
they're all from his blog.
Yeah.
But they each have a little more text on each one.
Yes. Let me give you another demonstration that came up.
His own opinion.
This came out of today, and I was thinking I would have an opportunity to share it. It has something to do with the preaching style. That, and it's difficult for me to do this, but okay.
You can't see it?
Well, I can see it well enough. I'm going to do the reading. That's the important thing. So as I listen to the preachers today and the singers and the gospel singers, and they're doing that certain kind of sound with the gospel singers, and the women are going crazy, and they have a chorus and they have an organ playing and all this kind of stuff. So let's just say I'm going to go with Jeremiah. The Lord called me and told me to open Daniel. And I read, "The fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall spread down and break it to pieces." Then later I read in Daniel Revelation, I could hear his beautiful speech. and then in someplace else, and he had a mouth like that of a lion. No liberal is going to talk like this. That was Revelations, Daniel. And then Revelations once again. And I saw a beast coming out of the sea, Jeremiah, and from the horns and 7 heads, which stood for 7 hills. And then Revelations, and I said, Lord, tell it to me. Say, I'm listening, Lord. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed his lead. I'll just do one more here from Daniel. A despicable person will arise, a man of contempt, to whom... Notice how different that sounds. If you give yourself some preaching style. And the liberals can't preach like this, normally. I can't do it, but I'm good. I can. Martin Luther King was a good orator. There are people like Cory Booker, and there are good politician orators.
But, Barack Obama, of course.
Right. But that's different than a preaching style. He had a mouth that spoke great things and that seemed greater. I could see how they just repeat. He will try to change the set times and the laws. And you repeat them. The laws. He will cause deceit to prosper. And then
better.
And then the organ is playing, and then and it's all true. He will use every kind of evil deception to fold it, pound it, say, and people say it, brother, say it. And then I'd say, sing it.
And why do we want this explanation is my point. Do we get back to my point too?
Oh, well,
I like your preaching. I think your preaching's good. That makes sense. But why can't liberals do that? What do liberals do in church? Well, you're in silence.
Yeah, right. They're not even allowed to preach in the Quaker time. Al Sharpton is a preacher.
Right.
But he wasn't saying that Donald Trump, he wasn't doing this. He was saying...
This was kind of a stumble. By the way, Benjamin Corey his approach to what he's like, well, I was reading the Bible and I've kept finding all this stuff.
The Lord?
It wasn't like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he sought out that information,
The Lord showed it to him. And he said, what's his name, Benjamin?
Benjamin Corey.
Benjamin. You're my child, Benjamin. You're named after one of the 12 tribes of Israel, Benjamin. And your son Jeremiah, he will read it too. And listen to my holy word. This is the Lord speaking. Look in Daniel. See that monster with the 7 heads and the gold eyes. It's pretty powerful.
Is it a trick? It might be a trick.
What's a trick?
It's a trick.
What is a trick?
It's Vladislav Surkov's tricks.
Well, as Aristotle said, your speech should have pathos, logos, and ethos. And there's a lot of feeling here. I do think, and this is a concern, there are a lot of nice, let's say those kids that are, the white kids that I know that are in the protests, they're susceptible to this. They would go, many of them, if they heard, because there's a place in their hearts and souls for this kind of
right,
what you're looking for, this oracular thing. But
fantastic
on the other,
realism.
They also need a sense of, how do I account for this evil?
Is the only way to do that to engage in some sort of surrealistic, fantastic realism. That's kind of what I was trying to say.
Yes, well.
Because we can't, it's part of that idea that even they talk about it in Zero Books, that video I showed you before too.
Yes.
Which was that we have no ability to even see the future, so we just constantly rehash the past in this endless cycle. Because we're stuck in postmodern. We're like stuck in a postmodern loop that we can't get out of. So we're just obsessed with looking at reality and, oh, how can I manipulate this reality and change it? Instead of actually confronting it, we go to, they're cool. I think they're cool.
The phrases?
I think those are all cool.
Yes.
That's why I wrote them all down. But they're kind of seductive, right?
We sure are.
And they're seductive towards a reality that doesn't exist.
What do you mean? The reality is, we know one of the realities is that there's something about Trump that is uniquely vile.
But his mouth is not like a lion.
Well, metaphorically. No, I mean,
he did his okay. Well, how about the 7 Trump Towers with the antennas? That's a good one, right?
Well, it doesn't convince me of anything.
You don't think that's? But if that was a certain type of personality,
oh yeah,
they would be convinced.
Oh yes,
that's what I'm saying.
I think yes.
But why can't we just say Donald Trump is a really bad person? He's rich. He's trying to make his friends rich.
Yeah, I would
He's
think that's
probably
true.
doing some weird backroom deals. He's probably making alliances with bad people,
like
with like Sergei Kislyak in these secret meetings, and why does that not? That's not intriguing enough for the. That's what Rachel Maddow does. She sits and talks for 30 minutes, and then he met with Sergei Kislyak. You think he was? Where was he? He was in Washington D.C. at the time, on September 18th or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like. That's not the lion.
No,
and I'm saying Surkov harnesses this insanity and just gives you it.
Well,
even if it contradicts itself, it doesn't matter if it's contradictory. Like with Trump, one of the things they said after he retweeted that, he retweet some white supremacists or something by accident. And people were saying on Fox, they were like, well, a lot of people probably write those tweets.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a whole team of people writing those things. And, so we're at a point where he can literally say something that nobody knows what the hell it means. What was the last one? The looting starts, the shooting starts.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? Did you quote a white supremacist from 1968? Oh no, that just means, if the looting starts, people start shooting. It had nothing to do with that. And then other people are saying, oh yeah, but he doesn't even, his words themselves are not even, he doesn't even have to have responsibility for his words anymore. We're living in a Surkov. It would be good if we thought Revelations could tell us the answer.
No. It's not going to tell you the answer.
Well, it might be better than Surkov's approach of relativism and, I don't know if that's true or what did he mean? One of the things they always say, what does Donald Trump mean when he uses words?
Well, that is a totally valid question because there's something about his use of language which is unique and unusual and powerful, and we thought it would destroy him so early, and my first taste of that was when he said that John McCain is not a hero. I like people who were not caught. Yeah. And I thought, that's it for him.
Right.
He touched on the biggest sacred cow in North Dakota. Veterans. Oh,
you don't prisoner of war, for God's sake.
You don't touch them. You don't touch veterans.
Not even just veterans. The guy was a prisoner of war.
And then he said, where did that come from? And and here it is 3 years later, and we're still. So do we? But the American citizen. There are lots of citizens, 320, and it's not just. And they're Russia's party and part of this, and other people. Can we be rational? We have a constitution. There's an election.
We're not rational.
Well, citizens.
Obviously, we're not.
Citizens are supposed to try to be informed. And they're supposed to have good. Maybe
this is why we ended up with Joe Biden.
Exactly, that's what I'm moving toward. Joe Biden is supposed to be your next president, and there's an election on November 3rd. But there's no guarantee that that election is going to work out for my, whether it's the voter suppression or rigged voting systems or whatever. We don't know. But we Americans, I think, are now going to have a chance to see what's it like to have your country taken over by like one of these African dictators or by Adolf Hitler and to get elected. What's that like? Because we usually try to kind of things work out, but there's no guarantee of that. That's my own view. And
do you think Donald Trump's the Antichrist?
I think it's important to be rid of this vile president who has come to personify evil. No, I don't. I'm not enough of a normal Christian to say that, okay, there's this Antichrist coming. I mean, that's kind of biblical language.
What's wrong with that?
Well, but they're just...
They do it all the time.
Yes, they do. Yes, they. Yeah, there were those who thought that Barack Obama was the Antichrist, and it worked.
Sure.
And, oh my gosh! It says here somewhere that the dark man with the big ears will rule. Well, they people had to joke about.
He has big ears. Yeah.
Yes. So they would. No, I think we have a taste of evil, man.
Right.
And we can be saved by black people. I kind of believe that.
Black people will save us from Donald Trump.
Once again. I hope somebody saves us. But if it's but somebody has to put Joe Biden over. But no, the election itself has to be valid.
Yeah.
So, yes, I don't have any total hope that this will work. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if Donald Trump will still be president in November. He may be sick from corona or he may flee. I was hoping he would. And I kept saying the plane is warming up on the tarmac because he and Melania are going to flee to Slovenia on January 21st. Well, where else would in exile?
He could go to Russia.
Well, like the president of Ukraine.
Yeah.
That was where he went for exile.
Yeah.
I was hoping that for a long time. It hasn't happened yet. I'm sort of surprised. And a lot of other people are survived that he survived this long. Right?
Yeah.
We're not the only. I mean, everything we say, we've heard so much commentating. Yes,
But it's usually about real stuff. It's not fun.
No, back to your point. Yeah. And the main Jeremiah point here is about the role
fanstastic realism.
You'll kind of call it fanstastic realism, and its influence on political thinking, and
it's not influencing leftists that much.
No,
we don't have an Alex Jones.
No, I don't think so.
So
what we have is decent people like Joe Biden, but there are white people. There is a role for white people who will. The next president will probably be a white person. But there is a unique. This would be an American interpretation. There is a unique role for the descendants of slaves. That is just not like any place else in the world. They're something unique.
Well,
their problems are unique and all this kind of stuff. And so, we're not going to be saved by Indian people. I've lived with Indian people. They have a role and a mystery they play. No doubt about it. Indigenous.
But I don't know what you mean by saved exactly.
Saved meaning that Joe Biden will be elected president.
Just vote. I mean, these are just numbers, though. We could say white women from the suburbs are going to save us.
Well, I hope they do.
They could. It really could be just white women from Lansing, Michigan.
What about white men? Can they save us?
I don't think they're as persuadable. Like the metrics on persuadability are towards white upper middle class women, from what I've read, are the most persuadable voters.
Okay, well.
Then like 52% went for Trump last time.
Please. But now they're saying if
1% swing in Michigan, 1% swing of white women.
But if you're afraid now that they're going to defund the police, and
Yeah.
now I'm not going to feel safe in my house in Plymouth because those guys are going to come over here now. No, it's politics is a horrendous thing, and
Yeah.
and
But
this particular moment is, I'm not the only one that says that this. There's something uniquely dangerous about our situation at this moment. But you're reminding us of how does one, when they, to what extent is this oracular, the impulse to listen to oracular stuff
right.
is going to help the cause of what we might call I'll throw in another institution that has a certain magical power. It's possible. You have no idea.
Catholics.
The Pope.
Yeah.
The Pope is a universal. He is a big superstar. For the most part, he represents something that's kind of decent. I mean, at the moment, he says we should protect the environment.
Oh, okay.
He says that we should work for help the poor. We should be tolerant and kind.
Yeah.
And things like that. So he's not talking like Trump.
I mean, the Catholic Church obviously has a pretty horrendous legacy.
Well, if we watch this movie, the one that about the priest, that the guy said, "I'm going to kill a good priest," right? That's the way I'll get back at the Catholic Church, and I don't even want to. I'm not sure I'll watch the whole thing because it's going to be disturbing. But there is a place for. The Catholic Church has a role, but here's another thing for you as an MFA, and is for us, we're not black. I want to remind you of that. We're not Indians. We're not people of color. We know something about European Western civilization, and we're totally connected to it in a deep way, you through the arts and high education and all this. And Western civilization has to offer its best to get rid of this evil. And that's not just black people or Indian people or Asians or Chinese gay people or whatever. It has to, there's a role for white people.
It's
very important to road. And Donald Trump is one of us. He's a German ancestor. But so is Joe Biden is Irish, and he's an Irish Catholic. And what does he have to offer? He knows, and we all know, compared to what was happening at that church today, he seemed very bland. But he was at his best today. He was fine, And he said, not just bland thing. He said some things that were a little sharper and clear and stronger, and he said it with a little bit of passion. But yes, he is not. Those black people today they had their own unique thing to offer. But we as European, Czech Americans have a lot to contribute, but also to account for too. That's right. So and so that means Rembrandt and Mozart. What else is there? Aren't they enough?
That's enough. Rembrandt and Mozart.
Well, yes, really. I mean, they're just giants, but they need to be critiqued also, possibly. So, that was very magnificent. So you want